the Lord went to a quiet place way before dawn, a solitary place, and there prayed. The Lord often disappeared. He would seek solitude on a mountain, and at propitious moments, early dawn, the night hours, he combined in his person the two poles, action and contemplation, giving the model to us all. And the disciples knew that he was a master in every realm. When they saw him pray, they wanted to know what to say and how to do it themselves. And he gave them this model, which has come down to us in the solemn liturgical form, the long form, which essentially is what we have on a daily basis, and the more intimate, simple form of St. Luke. Interestingly enough, we have one thing in common with both, and that is the clause. We cannot expect forgiveness unless we give it. In St. Matthew, the word used is actually debts, which has been maintained today still in Welsh. It was never changed. Ymada I ni ein dyledion, our debts, and ymada i ni ein dyledwyr, as we forgive our debtors. But in Welsh, as in English, the present is there, whereas actually in the Greek, the past is in the second clause, as we have forgiven, implying that at the point of making that request, one is in a state of having let go already, not just a vague resolution in the mind, but it is a concrete state. So we're presenting ourselves already in openness of heart. Ian McCormack has a fantastic testimony about how he died bitten by jellyfish while diving deep down. And he was in terrible trouble before he actually did die. And somebody refused to help him. And he had made this mental resolution: brother, if I survive this, your history. When it came to his death, he was being shown his life, and he was also being prompted to try and find some prayer in his archives. And he only just remembered slightly the Our Father from his Sunday school. And he got to this clause, and before his eye was presented this gentleman that he had just previously said to, that if he survived, he would be history. And this was coming through. And this one, do you forgive him? And he mentally was replying, well, actually hadn't been on my program. And then he copped on. And he forgave. And at that point he was allowed to go on in his prayer. But also, it was a change, because at that point there was not a fundamental refusal and hardness of heart which comes through unforgiveness. We are all in a mess, and therefore the attitude towards others in the same mess is compassion. Actually, that person also is suffering but doesn't know it. and he deserves compassion rather than aggression. He gave a wonderful testimony which can be found on YouTube, Ian McCormack. Another very good one is Howard Storm. These are modern testimonies which actually can help if one has to do, for instance, with young people. They will listen to something of this nature, and when one leaves them before a message of this sort, it does the work for one very well. It's important to know how to manage these modern means, because the Lord has given them to us as great aids. The Lord gives us a teaching also about the day. In the same Sermon on the Mount, he gives a teaching about worry. Take no thought for the morrow will take care of its own. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, giving us a model, living within the parameters of the 24 hours. It's rather like the great master with on his breadboard one of those big French loaves, what we used to call sausage loaves, and he is distributing this just one little slice at a time. One can imagine him slicing up time in 24-hour segments, and we can't take more than one at a time or we get indigestion. If in the present day we live tomorrow, we ruin both, for tomorrow will do the same thing. Tomorrow we'll worry about the day after, and on it will go, and one will never relax in the freedom that comes from knowing that actually we can't help by worrying. It would be better to enjoy the freedom of the space of one day. It makes life much more easy, and it's the model given by the Lord himself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. We are reminded of the truth every time we say this prayer of the Saviour. Now, there are different ways of translating this. Give us this day our daily bread is what has come down to us in daily parlance, and the Greek would say that, but there is a difficulty with the word daily. Epiousion is the Greek, and it is translated also not as just quotidianum, daily, but superstantialem. It's found in early fathers. I believe St. Jerome himself uses the word, and it's an interesting fact that they were seeing, as their commentaries indicate, that there was more here than meets the eye, and it was perceived to be also Eucharistic. There are also early testimonies that the bread of life was received often, and so daily is not surprising. And the ambiguity of the Greek epiousion, super epi, substantialem, is interesting because the very word could mean precisely our supernatural, our bread which is sufficient not only for today but for tomorrow, because the bread for the morrow is also a possible translation of it, but it could be also on a different level altogether, the bread of life. That bread which goes beyond just the day. It would be well to reflect on the way that the Christian centuries have always halted at this, that if the Lord is present, we cannot spare anything in honouring him. I noticed with joy in France in the 80s how in the ambit of renewal, especially the charismatic renewal, where new communities were being born, which is still out there, when it came to the bread of life, there was a huge reverence shown, because there had been a certain cracking of the mould, there was a natural, spontaneous finding of one's language. It's very different actually from what has become now the official norm. It must be like this and only like this, and woe betide anyone who doesn't make it like this. There it was very different, because they had retrieved, refound what was actually there in the early church. In the Oriental ambit, the body is used, and they use the body fully. Spontaneously, one can, if one is in a situation of obligation, receive the bread of angels with huge devotion in this ancient posture of, as a complete beggar, holding up both hands and not touching it with the other hand, but receiving directly from the two hands with the tongue only. This other thing which has come in as the only possible norm now is not our heritage, and it is very casual. It has damaged hugely the life of the church, because from the First Communion onwards, in practice, it is seen to be very ordinary. That was not the experience of the centuries. It still is not the experience in the East. We must take advantage of the grace of this pandemic to appreciate anew what we have. Let us retrieve our roots. And also, we must need again to find the desire of the Lord, the positive will of the Lord, not the permissive will with regard to who does what. There was, towards the end of the 90s, a very strong teaching given by a number of very central dicasteries altogether, with the Pope's personal approval in forma specifica, making it his own, John Paul II, that it was only exceptionally that anyone but a priest or deacon was to be helping with distributing the bread of life. And where it had become a casual norm, without necessity, it was to be abrogated completely and totally. This pandemic could be a moment to look at that, especially if there are situations when a small number is coming into church physically because of limitations. There is no need for anyone but the priest and the deacon to be distributing. And also it would limit the damage of having more and more people handling it with regard to the danger of transmitting any disease, because normally, if the priest is not contaminated, there's no risk if he takes the precautions. But the more people out there doing all kinds of things who get in on this ministry, the more the danger is multiplied. Who knows where they've been? The priest would know very much what he must do and not do, so as to not endanger the flock. He would be doubly conscious. Would they have the same consciousness? And so it is that fewer graces would be deflected. It is probable that the Lord gives the maximum of added graces when he is received in the way that positively he wills. If the very act of communion is not in his positive will, but only his permissive will, the chances are that some supplementary graces are not being received, because there is, at that very moment, that presumption that we are in control and no one is asking, what does the Lord actually want in this? We need to find our roots. It was unheard of for 2 millennia for any but consecrated hands to touch the bread of angels and hand it on. At Corpus Christi, we had those wonderful teachings given by St. Thomas Aquinas in the liturgy itself about only the presbyters confecting and handing on, handling. That is the faith of the ages, and the protection given to the Blessed Sacrament, which is the greatest treasure we have on earth. We have grown up, we think. We include everyone, and we must give everyone participation, something to do, lest they get bored. Alas, if we're bored, we're looking for the wrong thing in church. We're there to disappear and not to appear before our brethren. Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi.